Hey everybody, welcome to Myopia Movies. Merry Christmas, happy 4th day of Hanukkah, happy holidays, happy solstice, happy everything. I'm in a good mood and we called an audible this year and we decided to throw at you a holiday classic of nightmares. 2000's The Grinch, starring Jim Carrey. Now here's the thing. There are 30 versions of this. I don't think we needed anything other than the original Chuck Jones animated classic. However, this year they are coming out with a new version called The Mean One, which is a horror movie, which apparently is terrible. I have not seen it yet. However, we called an audible for you and did it as a way to, celebrate the season. I appreciate you guys a lot, and you're the reason we keep doing this. So please enjoy your new year, and hopefully this will bring some relief from the stressful time for those of you who are feeling stressed. And happy holidays. Bye, guys. Welcome to Myopia Movies and happy holidays. As we release this, The Grinch is going to steal Christmas in exactly 10 days. I am your host with the most, Nick Hoffman, Riffer on Cineprov, and your host here. Oh, and I guess, listen to Required Reading, where this week we're releasing an episode on A Christmas Carol, which is much more Christmas-oriented than this movie ever pretended to be. And on panel we've got
Matthew W. Quinn, who in solidarity with the Grinch will not plug his books in protest of excessive consumerism.
Actually, I think the Grinch at the beginning would have plugged it. He learns not to.
Hello, this is Daniel, a contributor to popdose.com, frequent annoyance of Nick on this podcast. And I don't know about my heart being 2 sizes too small, but my penis, on the other hand.
And they say his penis grew 3 sizes that day.
How the Grinch stole the mayor's Viagra.
Oh, God.
Okay, I just want to go ahead and open with this joke here. Jeffrey Tambor's the mayor of Whoville, and he's giving expensive Christmas gifts, but never once did he give anyone a garden weasel. Boo.
I mean, but that's a joke right out of Rocko's Modern Life, I think.
It's the Larry Sanders
show.
It is
100%. So first of all, we should mention that, of course, in the Christmas season, we want to bring you the classics of film, and this is an Academy Award-winning picture.
Oh, it sure is.
For Best Makeup. Welcome back to the show from our Halloween episode on The Howling. Welcome back, American Werewolf in London. Welcome back, Rick Baker. And I will say, this movie, I think, is unsettling, but we're doing it. We changed our schedule. We were originally going to do Robin Williams' movie Toys, which is impossible to find. But don't worry, we'll bring it back in the future. So we changed to The Grinch because as we are recording, a horror movie is being dropped called The Mean One, which is a Grinch-based horror movie. Because when they put the Widow Seuss in the ground, apparently all bets were off. And so we're doing the original horror movie, How the Grinch Stole Christmas from 2000, starring Jim Carrey and directed very poorly by Ron Howard. This movie.
Which means Clint Howard's in this movie as well.
Well, Clint Howard has to show up. I mean, even in his good movies, in Apollo 13, for example, Clint Howard's in the background.
I say it was a promise to his
holding
mother.
a clipboard going, I don't know if Tom Hanks is going to survive, Ron.
I say it was a promise to his mother. It's like, well, if you're going to make movies, Ron, dear, you've got to put Clint in them.
Okay, I'll make a promise, and I don't know if I'll carry through because one of our listeners would have to remind me. But we should do a Clint Howard movie that Ron has nothing to do with. Isn't he in The Ice Cream Man?
I believe he is.
We can do The Ice Cream Man, where he's killing people and scooping out ice cream. Well, there we go. A Clint picture. Okay. Matt hasn't said anything because he's terrified.
Or terrifying.
Are you as terrifying as the Grinch in this movie?
Probably not.
Who wants to give a plot synopsis? I mean, we've all seen The Grinch.
How do you not know the plot of How the Grinch Stole?
But here's the problem.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay, Matt, do it.
All right. In this story, the Grinch doesn't actually steal Christmas the last third of the movie. So the rest of the movie is this like anti-consumerist orgy that gives the Grinch a backstory and makes him a full-on anti-hero.
Well, but let's be clear. That's what the book is about, too. Right? I mean, the book's, like, the line where he turns is, perhaps Christmas, he said, is not something you buy in a store. Like, that's what the whole thing is about. The difference here is, from the beginning in the book, the Who's know it. Right?
Right.
The Who's right away, when Christmas is stolen, they don't skip a beat. Because to them, the miracle, like literally it's the miracle of Christmas. Like a giant star comes out of the center of them as though they're giving birth to Christmas. Here, it takes literally a girl doing the Spartacus thing. I believe Christmas is about, like, the spirit of it. And then the dad shows up. And by the way, I should say, just before we get into this is a Ron Howard production, which I already mentioned. But that means some incredible actors are in this. Like, I love Bill Irwin. I love Jim Carrey. I love Christine Baranski, who's playing a horn dog in this for no reason. Jeffrey Tambor, you said it was probably he lost a bet, and to make this and Arrested Development, he had to be in both.
Oh, yeah, this is definitely how he got into Arrested Development. I mean, it's like, he knew Ron Howard, so why not?
And I mean, you'd never recognize her in this, but Molly Shannon
she
is
was
the mom.
Cindy Lou Who's mother.
And Faith Hill did the single version of Where Are You Christmas?
Wasn't Busta Rhymes on the soundtrack of this well?
He is. And then we have the slow jazz version of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, which Jim Carrey also sings in.
It made me long for the days of Cuban Pete.
Which was, what, 3 years? No, 6 years before this.
Yeah.
Like, this is the end of the Carrey Sans. And I don't think this is the cause of it. I mean, eventually, if you watch that Jim and Andy documentary, he talks about how he intentionally kind of stepped away. But by this point, he's running on fumes. And if you see this movie, which I would not necessarily recommend, but he's the reason to see it. Like, the girl in this, her name is Taylor Momsen, who, if you look her up, for the last 10 years, the only thing she's been in is music videos for her punk band, which, yeah, you turn into a goth after being Cindy Lou Who.
There were several memes around that in, like, 2015 or so.
Yeah, she's in a band called The Pretty Reckless, which
I've
is
heard
great.
of them.
Yeah, and I mean, she did a run on Gossip Girl. She's chosen to not act and is a musician, and that's fine, because, I mean, she can sing. When this movie decides it's a musical, 45 minutes into the movie.
She can't sing in this movie, but
I think she's fine for a kid actor, but there's just not much for her to do, and Ron Howard can't direct kids and should no longer direct kids. And I don't think really has since, so he learned his lesson.
Can we also mention the biggest co-star in this movie, and that's Anthony Hopkins as the narrator?
Second. He's the second biggest co-star. The biggest co-star is Kelley the dog playing Max. And that is an Academy Award-winning dog performance, because Kelley nails it. Go ahead.
Have the consumerist Who's stopped screaming, Clarice?
There you go.
And I will say, the top 4 actors in order are Jim Carrey as the Grinch, Taylor Momsen as Cindy Lou Who, Kelley the dog is third billed in this movie.
On the Internet Movie Database there?
And in the credits.
Oh.
And then fourth is Tambor. Ron made him eat the dog shit, I can tell you that. And that's awesome. So how do you guys want to tackle this movie? Because, like you alluded to, we know the story of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and eventually Anthony Hopkins reads the entire How the Grinch Stole Christmas book. Like,
hearing him towards the start say the phrase "fizz pheasant" is one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
Fizz pheasant, and you're just like, go ahead, Tony. You
got this.
They had a bunch of new narrator dialogue. Like, throughout the course of the first third of the story, Cindy Lou Who is investigating the Grinch's backstory, complete with some, like, double-decker recording tape.
Oh, Frau Farbissina was a big role in that.
Yeah, she's one of the two. I just assume lesbian couple, right?
I guess.
The ones who raise him.
All I know is he was dropped outside of a key party.
Well, I mean, I guess we have to start with even the beginning. This whole thing takes place in a snowflake that has been around for at least 1,000 years, we're told. Okay. Thanks, Imagine Entertainment.
It's like Horton Hears a Who, except the Who's live in a dandelion. Those Who's. And these Who's live in a snowflake.
Those Who's upon Yous. Are you gonna? I should try to rhyme for the rest of this, but I'm gonna give up on that immediately.
We should try to find a way to make Nick do the whole podcast in rhyme.
We should get thing 1 and thing 2 out here. That would be fun.
We promise. We texted back and forth. Next year is season 10, and we want to do a blowout season. We will do Cat in the Hat because I remember hating that at the time. I know Mike Myers is in it. I know Alec Baldwin is in it.
Yes, he is.
Kicking around.
Why is it that the Dr. Seuss cartoon adaptations are so much better?
Because it's a 50-page kids book. There's maybe 300 words in the whole thing. Why you want to turn it into 90 minutes is beyond me.
And this goes on like for 105 minutes.
This one is obscenely long.
I mean, the Chuck Jones cartoon special, which everyone's seen at this point in time, pretty sure before they issue your birth certificate, you have to watch that.
If you own a TV, you've seen it because, I mean, now, of course, everything's streaming and you have to own it, which is weird because it's 12 Ways from Sunday. But when we were kids, it was on probably...
It was on TBS all the time.
I was going to say, between Thanksgiving and Christmas every year, it was probably on 12 times. Mm-hmm. And so you had to actively avoid it to miss it.
And again, this is a 15-page children's book, and it was tough padding it out to a half hour, but Chuck Jones did it with these great sight gags.
Working with...
Dr. Seuss.
Who is an animator and an illustrator, and it has heart.
His old war buddy, Dr. Seuss.
And if you haven't done this before, look them up on YouTube. There's a bunch of them. But Private Snafu. Mm-hmm. Their names aren't on it, but you'll recognize it looks very Seussian and Chuck Jonesian immediately. But they're all, I mean, I don't want to say they're propaganda films because they're really not. They're generally
training films.
Well, they're more like health films, like don't sleep with German women because they could be spies kind of stuff. Like,
make sure you keep your secrets and don't tell anyone.
Right. Proper hygiene stuff. They're not how to shoot. They're more like, let's have a message about being safe in jokes. And they're funny. Like, genuinely. And I have a book of Dr. Seuss's political cartoons for Stars and Stripes that he did. And other than some mild anti-Japanese racism, they're good because he has...
Mild?
I'm being nice. It's the holiday season. But he has comedy chops. The problem with bringing these things into real life is cartoons never translate into real life. We've all seen the Simpsons pornography parody. It doesn't look right.
Not my proudest fap, but...
Right. So
were you Homer,
everyone.
Daniel?
What was that now?
Were you Homer, Daniel?
Well, in this particular instance, he was Mo. So anyway, the whole thing starts. We have a Christmas. They're preparing. We actually say Christmas relatively rarely because they're preparing for something called the Jubilation, which is a Christmas Eve celebration about the holidays.
And it's like a Black Friday nightmare sequence with like the store being overrun with people and the clerk like banging out in a cash register keyboard at a point I think would leave blood behind, and Cindy Lou is being made to carry piles of presents bigger than she is.
Well, and as someone who's worked retail during the holidays, like they do a good job illustrating it.
Oh, I've worked Black Friday and retail in the holidays, and nothing will make you hate humanity faster.
I never worked Black Friday per se because I worked at a mall and the mall was closed Black Friday, but I've worked in the weeks between I was home like December 10th and then worked through Christmas at the mall. So yeah, you see some very angry people trying to decide whether or not to get their husband/wife a massage chair from Brookstone, and it ends incredibly poorly.
Good old Brookstone.
What was your retail job? Did you ever work retail, man?
I worked one Christmas at Honey Baked Ham.
Oh,
that was the time I got bleach in my eyes. That was hilarious.
Sounds hilarious.
Other Christmases like at grocery stores.
That's hell.
And
I mean, and again, I love Publix, and I hear they're a good company to work for. But
yeah, they are.
Just being around that many people trying to grab the last turkey just gives me the skeebies.
Well, yeah, I was a bag minion, so by the time they got to me, they were done. But if I was like
shaking dry from the paper bags, like.
But if I was like a deli clerk or something, maybe that would have been a problem.
Yeah, working in the butchery, trying to desperately restock eggnog as people who are one glass away from a coronary grab it.
I just remember I worked for Fresh Market one Christmas. I remember making a lot of cannoli.
Yeah, I believe you.
Max, leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
And bruschetta, like putting that French bread slices in the oven.
Yeah. Don't say French bread around bruschetta. An Italian will stab you.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this opens with like a capitalist Black Friday nightmare. And Cindy Lou Who is the only one who's like going, doesn't this all seem superfluous?
Does anyone know what Christmas is all about?
Well, but here's the thing.
And then Linus comes out and quotes scripture and
I give it to first of all, Chuck Schultz.
You mean Chuck
Sparky. Charles Schultz.
Yeah.
Right. Who called himself Sparky, gets the greatest credit of all time on that special. Graphic blandishment. So as he's blandishing it, here's what he does. The whole world stops for Linus to quote the Gospel of Luke. And I think it's an emotionally effective scene. You know, he goes, "Lights please" to no one because there's no one in the auditorium, and he quotes Luke, and it's a moment. Here, the girl is saying her important thing, but Ron Howard's like, "No, baby, we gotta keep moving." Like everyone's ignoring the plot of the moral of the movie is uttered by a child, and no one could give a shit because we're about to get to a very horny joke. Like, that's the problem constantly.
And it's the same goddamn moral that's been in every single children's Christmas movie since Christmas movies existed.
So I'm going to ask you this, and I will describe mine so you have a minute. What's the most obscure Christmas special that you remember?
That I remember?
That you watched, that you as a kid watched, maybe you owned on tape or recorded, because I have a couple, and I'll describe two of them so you have a second. But there's one that I have not refound, so I need to Google the hell out of it this Christmas.
Wait, refound?
Well, because some of them you can find on YouTube and some you can't. So the one that I have not found is the Baranski Bears. Now, the Baranski Bears Christmas special is important because on Christmas Eve, they don't have a tree yet. And their tradition is to get a tree on Christmas Eve, and it's a blizzard. And so Dad is hunting for the right Christmas tree like a crazed asshole. And the snow is coming down. And literally, he's climbing Mount Crumpet. Like, the frame turns, so he's climbing almost a 90-degree grade looking for this tree with, like, sparkles in his eyes. And the kids are like, "Dad, Christmas is hours away. Can we go home?" And he's like, "But the tree." That's insane. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I remember that.
Thank God, because I think I'm going crazy.
The one scene I remember in that one was when he's talking about, "Oh, we don't want to go to a tree lot. Those people are fucking crooks." And this is all in Berenstein Bears language, so he doesn't say that. But we don't want to go there. And oh shit, we're next to a tree lot. Hi, Merry Christmas, tree lot owner. And he Gus, I think his name was.
And he goes, "We'll find the right tree if it takes us a week." And the girl goes, "Christmas is hours away." And you're just like, oh, this man might murder his family. The other one that I remember is...
Clark Griswold would tell him to just scale it back a bit.
He would. The other one is it's the California Raisins Christmas special, which is on YouTube in full. And just to see them sing... We Three Kings, and it's like an acid trip, and then one of them turns into a camel, you will lose your goddamn mind, and it's amazing. We Three Kings of Oriental. It's so amazing.
Oh my God.
And I mean, I guess since we're here, I'll mention this. My family's tradition, as long as I can remember, and I carry through to this day, is on Christmas Eve, we get a new Christmas movie that we watch as a family.
Oh.
It's nice. And there have been classics. As me and my brothers got older, we got Christmas Vacation. The year it came out, we got Muppet Christmas Carol. We even have, when we were kids, one of the old Sesame Street Christmas specials. Again, classic. Bert and Ernie singing, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas." Like, it's good stuff. That's where we got the Berenstein Bears one. And then the year we got this one, we watched it once and went into the cabinet, and we never watched it again.
Is a cabinet locked and barred in case it comes out?
I bet you it's still at my parents' house, and no one will ever... It came in a green case.
And
sorry, go ahead.
An unmarked green case. So no one knows what's in it.
It's the
and
Grinch.
Then immediately after it was over, the phone rang, and then the only thing on the other end was Jim Carrey as the Grinch going, 7 days.
7 days. Do either of you have an obscure Christmas special?
An obscure one?
One that you have not seen since you were a chitlin.
Oh. Do you remember that show Life with Louie?
I do.
There was a Christmas special of that.
And they do this whole thing for the neighbor because she never has Christmas.
Yes.
And she's Jewish.
All right, stand back, everyone. I just remember the dad electrocuting himself when he was trying to plug in the lights.
I believe that was the pilot. And he was always one... He was one Big Mac away from a heart attack at any point, right? He was like a fat guy heart attack, just a.
It was Louis Anderson just doing all the voices, and
if I recall correctly, in that special, he's also appears live action. Oh, my family.
Oh, it ends with him going, "I'm going to give my dad something very special for Christmas this year," and it's live action Louis Anderson, and then he just goes to this random gift and pulls it out. I'm giving him his jumper cables back. But yeah, no, that was the whole thing. It was Louis and this family want to set up the neighbor with a Christmas celebration because they never see her celebrating Christmas, and
turns out she's Jewish.
But she still appreciates the gesture, from what I recall.
She does, but it's a good joke, and it goes because she was Jewish, and it was just it's. I mean, and that reminds me of a joke that they cut from this that the widow Seuss said no to, which is that everyone celebrated Christmas in Whoville except for the Whosteins, which is really just like, guys. I mean, like, I get it. Not everyone celebrates Christmas, but you can't single out one family like it's the Holocaust.
Considering how just insane these people are in this movie, and especially the mayor. I hate the mayor. There would be a Holocaust if someone wouldn't celebrate Christmas.
It kind of reminds me of the gags that they do in F is for Family, if you've ever seen that.
I've seen
where
F is for Family.
One of the neighbors is a Holocaust survivor, but they think he's like a Nazi war criminal.
They do. I mean,
and just spread that around the block as like an urban legend.
The first season of that show is great, but it needed to end with the first season. And it's not that I don't like Bill Burr. It's just that, like a lot of bands, the first album's the one they clearly worked on for a long time, and then after that they're like, shit, what do we got? Do you have a special or?
When I was really real little, they had the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Oh yeah,
on ABC at like 6 in the morning on Saturdays, and there was a Christmas or generic holiday thing. I don't remember if I watched it when I was little or because when my little sister was born, she got a lot of Winnie the Pooh videos and stuff.
Sure.
Or if we just got her that when she was little, but there was a Winnie the Pooh. It's called Seasons of Giving or something like that.
I know exactly what you're talking
about. Is
that
when Winnie the Pooh dresses up as Santa?
Possibly, because there's also a baby bird they kind of adopted.
Yeah. I will say one day we will do all the things where Christmas shouldn't be Christmas yet, like the Flintstones Christmas. There's a Christmas special about Christmas before there's Christmas. Like, I love that shit. And again, to me, my favorite Christmas special every year is the Colbert Christmas. And if you haven't seen it, and I know the guys around me I've made them watch it with me with a hard nog. And it's a masterpiece because it makes fun of all the old Bing Crosby stuff. But like,
isn't John Legend in that at one point?
He is. It's not Kenny. It's Toby Keith is in it. Willie Nelson is in it. Feist is. It's a great time if you can find it. Unfortunately, because of all the Warner Brothers nonsense and the Viacom nonsense going on, it's actually harder to find than it should be.
Really?
Physical media for the win.
I own it.
Good.
I own it in physical media. To me, I am a sucker for the Christmas season, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Like. We don't do a lot of Christmas movies here for a lot of reasons, mainly that we have non-Christian listeners, and we like to make fun of these movies. And whenever it comes to nostalgia, it's hard to make fun of people's nostalgia. That's what people turn off.
Is 8 Crazy Nights in our time zone now?
It is, but I mean, oof.
I mean,
the only Hanukkah movie I'm aware of.
Well, and we should do it because of that, and we do bad Christmas movies, so we should do it. It's just that. We'll never do A Miracle on 34th Street because any of them.
Which one? The original one or the remake with Mara Wilson?
But even the remake with Mara Wilson is not great, but it's not terrible. Like, what are we going to make fun of? You know what I mean? And so when we're talking here about the Grinch, they've taken such a simple, beautiful concept because like How the Grinch Stole Christmas is an original Christmas story with morals that have existed before. And then Ron Howard takes that beautiful glass and smashes it on the ground and says, I'll reassemble it into something prettier. And he gets every beat of it wrong.
To the point where Jim Carrey's mocking him in the movie. That scene where he's directing Max. Brilliant! Why didn't I think of that? You reject your own nose and thus reject the consumerism of Christmas. I mean, that's clearly Jim Carrey just fucking with Ron Howard.
I mean, earlier on even, I don't know if Ron made fun of himself without realizing it, but he ends up in the dump and the Grinch is doing like garbage angels and bags marked hazardous waste land on his lap and he goes, "My God, what's that horrid stench? It's fantastic. Grab what you can." That was the script writing meeting. Like, it's just like, this is terrible. Let's film it.
So the Grinch is introduced in this movie, and this, again, is way beyond the cartoon or the book. Apparently Mount Crumpet is what he lives on.
That's in the book.
That's in the book, but
we essentially go
he's in
from
a
a
cave.
Macy's holiday display to
some Who delinquents, who I think are Cindy Lou Who's brother and his girlfriend and their friends are trying to troll the Grinch.
Yes, because he lives in a
Grinch
crave.
Friday the 13th movie, where he's pranked by essentially Max the dog wearing a giant mask. At which point he goes to town dressed as Obi-Wan Kenobi, wearing a mask from Donnie Darko? I don't know how to describe this.
It looks like one of those horror. There's a horror movie where like these people kill people wearing those masks.
No, I think Nick's right. This is clearly a Frank the Bunny Rabbit mask he's wearing.
I think the movie you're talking about came out after this.
What is it with Jim Carrey and wearing weird masks?
Everyone's got a hobby.
There's a movie about a mask that he was in?
Believe it or not, there was.
I think there might have been
What could
two.
it possibly have been called?
I don't remember.
Ace Ventura.
I think it was called The Mask That Couldn't Slow Down.
So, by the by, they apparently approached the director of The Mask to do this.
All right.
Better movie.
My name is Cuban Grinch.
No, sorry, I was wrong. Not The Mask. The director of Ace Ventura to do this.
Okay.
So maybe he would have shat out the back of Christmas. Oh, that's Ace Ventura 2. Excuse me. I will talk about this because it made Daniel and I angry. So I'll do it very, very politically simply. So when Dr. Seuss, Theodore Gazelle, died, he had said no to any live-action version of his movie, any, in fact, film-length version of his movie. He'd done, of course, shorts for almost all of his classics, all done by Chuck Jones. And, of course, by this point, I think Chuck Jones died in 98.
He died, I want to say 2001, 2002, but...
He had retired by the mid-90s. And so the widow Seuss was the one who... the widow Giselle, I guess, was the one who approved starting to re-advertise, making stuffed animals, making... Okay. And to even pitch a movie about one of the properties was $1 million to pitch the movie. Okay. And everyone wanted a bite of the Grinch because since Home Alone 2, there had not been a major Christmas family movie that had made money. Home Alone, of course, was
had made a lot of money. There had been Christmas movies.
But they're all... I mean, nowadays, unfortunately, I wish they existed, but they don't exist anymore. Everything's now on Lifetime level or Netflix level, right? Home Alone 1 had been a surprise in 89 when it came out or whatever.
91,
91 it came out. And then so they made a sequel, which had also made a pile of money. So now there was like this rush to make Christmas movies again in a big way. This movie, by the way, had a budget of $100 million, which we'll get to. But so they pitched it, and 4 studios pitched a movie to the widow Giselle, including a Farrelly Brothers production.
Spielberg had to have pitched something at one point.
Well, Spielberg's company did.
Okay.
I don't think he did specifically. Because if there was a director that Spielberg would have done for a Christmas movie, it would have been Ron Howard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Universal, of course, paid for Ron, which is why this is a Universal production. And by his own notes, he goes, so I was reading the source material, which means it took him 20 minutes. But he goes, I was interested in looking into Cindy Lou Who. Ron, I'm buddy, if you're spending time on this, you've missed the point.
Yeah.
But whatever. So after 6 pitches, $1 million a piece to the widow Seuss, she decided on this. And by the way, she got 6% on the back end, or 4% on the back end of everything, and 50% of the merchandise.
Oh.
And she got right of last refusal on the entire script.
And she still approved the script.
That's what we're about to get to.
Yeah. So here's the thing about all of that. She did that, but then Ron Howard allowed a lot of... and apparently she vetoed 3 or 4 at least jokes that were too sexual innuendo-y.
Oh my God, there are so many sex jokes in this movie.
We will get here, but remember, there's a lot of sex jokes in here, but all of them do not end up in the script. Because she got the script, not the shooting script, the actual words. So, in this movie, there's a key party. That's a visual joke, not a script joke. That's something that was in the shooting script. The whole, hey, you look like my boss. That is an improv line. All of Jim Carrey's jokes, that's improv.
So he was improvising when he stuck his face in Christine Baranski's boobs.
Or put the mistletoe up his ass and wiggled it around. And the thing where Jeffrey Tambor licks a dog's ass, that's also not in the script because it's a shooting joke. So she didn't see any of that until the final cut, which apparently they edited around her. And so that's why there's only 2 live action movies. This
and Cat in the Hat,
which she had approved at the same time.
Ah, boy.
They waited for this to come out before they even started casting that. This was approved in 98. Cat in the Hat was approved in 99. This came out in 2000. They also approved a script for Oh, the Places You'll Go, which she pulled the plug on and paid them back for after the Cat in the Hat debacle.
Oh, boy.
So that's what's going on with all of this nonsense. And we haven't talked about the movie one iota, and I'm already disgusted.
Yeah, I mean, we're about 20 minutes into this movie.
I thought this movie was hilarious, but pulling a fast one on an old woman
in her 90s.
Yeah, to quote the great Negan from The Walking Dead, not cool.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
To quote the janitors after my stomach virus, not cool. So here we are. I mean, when the Grinch is in town and he's harassing Cindy Lou Who when he's messing up the postal service.
Jury duty, jury duty, jury duty.
Blackmail, blackmail.
Which, by the way, means he has cameras everywhere.
Or their Who's are all blackmailing each other and he found it.
Well, or he just shows up at that one key party that happens every year, apparently, and films everything.
Now, this was a weird part because
Who video.
First, Cindy Lou Who's dad
Who's
apparently...
gone wild?
Pornhoo.
Oh, good Lord.
Pornhoob.
Speaking of which, how did Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend not end up doing cameos for this movie? I'm just saying, you want the Who in Whoville, don't you?
The Who down in Whoville won't be fooled again.
Exactly.
In the mayor's re-election campaign, I suppose.
Cindy Lou Who's dad works for the post office. We get that because apparently we need 1940s Norman Rockwell, Frank Capra Americana in any Christmas movie. And her whole thing is that the Grinch saves her from being... I don't even know. Like, she ends up in a chute with fragile packages.
She was going to get stamped by a giant stamping machine, and Max has to basically guilt trip him into doing it.
So the Grinch didn't even really save her. Max did.
Well, the Grinch did it after being guilt tripped by a dog.
Why does the Grinch have a dog in this?
Because if all the trash in the town ends up on his mountain, that was probably someone's Christmas pet.
Oh, that's...
Well, okay.
I'm really depressed now. I'm sorry, Matt.
No, I will disagree with... Well, I mean, Daniel's right. You should be sad. But I think Matt's right. Here's the thing, though. The 2 movies we're talking about tonight, they're Matt movies in the best way possible, in that they're good ideas here, but they're poorly executed. So Daniel and I will hate them. Matt will like them because they're funny and they have opportunity.
I thought the movie as was a little too long, but I thought it was hilarious. I mean, not really for kids, the more I think about it. You know, the dog stuff.
I will say there are bits here, like for example, after the Grinch does his stuff in town, there's a 99% off thing at the I guess it's a haberdasher at the Hat House,
and he gets trampled.
Well, no, but he blows the bad breath in the guy's face and he faints. But like after all that chaos, there's like a newspaper that goes Grinch spotted in Whoville. and it's a Yeti shot, but it's just him in the costume doing the Yeti pose from the Patterson film.
Yeah.
Like, that's funny. There are actual funny beats here, but the thing is, it doesn't add up to a movie to me. There's a reason why this movie, like, and Rotten Tomatoes is nonsense. I don't like it, but it got a 50% because you're either an adult who found it funny, but like I was telling Matt beforehand, my daughter doesn't like this film.
Oh, well, that's the ultimate review right there.
Well, if it's supposed to be a kids movie, who's the people it should appeal to? But like,
this is like, I compared it earlier to Christmas with the Cranks. The family won't celebrate Christmas. The whole town starts to like torment them. But maybe Shrek would be better because a lot of the humor works. A lot of the humor works more for adults, like key parties. The baby looks like your boss, and eating the dog's behind, which most definitely there's some tongue going in there. You can see the dog react.
Yeah, we'll get there. But like, I just okay. So I mean, the beats of this movie are we're an hour. Like when you start the timer, we're almost literally an hour from him starting to steal Christmas. But like from the beginning, okay. So he's thinking about going to town. We'd have no reason why he actually decides to go to town. But when he goes to town, he causes chaos. And Cindy Lou Who asks the question because she runs into him in the back room of the post office. And he, like Matt said, saves her, but then he wraps her up in wrapping paper. And the dad finds her and goes, "Oh, you're finally getting into the Christmas spirit," which frustrates her to no end. But then, like, we're doing an episode of, like, I don't know, a podcast like Serial or something.
Yeah, she's supposed to be like 6 or something, but she's acting like she's 9 or 10. She's interviewing everyone in the town about the Grinch.
I thought she was supposed to be no more than 2, Miss Cindy Lou Who.
Boo-hoo.
I'm just saying.
But
we get to this whole subplot where the Grinch becomes the holiday cheermeister for the Whobilation.
Wait. We got to stop just for a second. Because we get his backstory.
Oh, my God.
And this is where the key party happens. Like, there's no stork in this town, but kids arrive by, like, in a very Seussian way, I would say.
Dandelion seeds.
With, well, but it's like it's a bassinet hanging from an umbrella or a flower or like you say dandelion seeds. But like then they arrive. That's where we get the joke where like, oh, he looks like my boss. But like the Grinch, after knocking another child out of the way, so I assume that child just dies. Who knows? He lands on this progressive couple. Like it's these two elderly women who live together. I called them a lesbian couple earlier, but that's what they are. They raise the Grinch.
Imagine if Patty and Soma were parents, kind of like that.
Old blind just trying to feed it cat food because they think it's a talking cat. Like I don't know what's going on.
Well, he eats a plate at one point.
A Santa plate.
The Santa plate.
Santa. And this the poor little person wearing this. Like Jim Carrey apparently spent 63 days in that costume.
Ooh.
He apparently had to go through some sort of military training to withstand torture.
Like, I believe it. And by the way, I will say the costume is impressive. I don't know if it looks good or not. It looks like I almost said graphic novel. It looks like the kid's book, especially the one thing, and they use some CGI and they use some slow motion here, but to do the big smile, they do that a couple times. It's impressive. It's truly impressive. But then they put it on this poor little person to be the child version of Jim Carrey, and holy hell, it's terrifying. Because to impress a girl, Christine Baranski as a child, like, he shaves himself because they're making fun of an 8-year-old with a beard. And by the by,
yeah, it's the mayor even as a child was an asshole. I hate that mayor,
Christine Baranski, and Jeffrey Tambor. I will say though, Augustus Gloop, the kid, gets everything wrong because I don't know if you guys remember middle school, but the kid who got facial hair first was not a loser.
No.
He was the cool kid, and so there he is with something that looks like 2 rakes against each other, and this poor 9-year-old well, we don't know what the Grinch is. They never explain what the Grinch is supposed to be.
Well, he's instead of being a who, he's more of a what? No, that's what they say in the movie.
Because Cindy Lou Who and the mayor get like almost like a Bible quoting contest with each other about there's like a Who scriptures and there's something about how
the Book of Who.
Yeah,
we have a Scientology or a Book of Mormon thing going on, I guess. I don't know who
you're making things up again, Arnold. Sorry. Any more than that, and we'll get struck with a copyright takedown.
From Viacom, I guess. Anyway, so he shaves himself, and he makes a Christmas ornament for the class, and the fucking teacher laughs, and then like.
Well, he was told that he was too hairy, so
he has a beard as an 8-year-old or whatever.
He tried to shave, and the little ornament he made for
Cindy or
Martha.
Christine Baranski,
Martha May
Marlene.
Martha May Huvier, which made me groan.
Jackie Kennedy joke. Man, if she was holding Jeffrey Tambor's brains at the end of this.
Oh,
after a assassination by Jack Hoobie or Lee Hoovie Oswald.
That's brilliant.
I don't know if I'd say brilliant, but
I think it's funny.
Hey Oswald, blam! Try to steal Christmas, will you?
Okay, that would have been pretty funny.
And then this. Let's just go give with the age what they say or whatever. 8 years old. He climbs to Mount Crumpet, and those Grammys, they don't care. That's why I think they thought he was a cat the whole time or something like, oh, cat ran away. Oh, well.
Yeah, the whole class, except for Martha May, just joins in just ritualistically humiliating him. It's bad.
Oh, and she is still totally down to fuck as she recalls this memory.
For the entire rest of the movie.
Yeah, the interview she's giving to Cindy Lou Who, like, she says something, and then Cindy Lou Who is like, I didn't ask you that.
Did I have a crush on the Grinch? Which, I mean, hey, I mean, the Grinch is going to be down to wreck Martha May's pussy. Let's be real here.
I mean, it's a lot. But I mean, like, and then he climbs, like, I mean, Mount Crumpet in this looks like the Matterhorn in need of a Cialis. Like, it's just the whole thing, like, sag. It's very strange. And then we smash
Jack Skellington's climbing up there to sing.
Yeah, he's like the little green short dude in like a little sailor suit climbing up the mountain, crying, screaming how he hates Christmas.
Well, I mean that's literally the thing that comes next. We jump back to the book, and it goes, and he stood there on Mount Crumpet just hating the Who's, and then he's holding a phone book, and he goes, Appleby Applethab Who. I hate you.
Is this
hate?
Oh yes, with the phone book.
Entirely.
The best moments of this movie, which still kind of didn't work because the Grinch isn't supposed to be funny, like the character's not. I mean, he's supposed to be a straight man, but
no, I think the Grinch is supposed to be straight man / passive aggressive because, like, even in the Chuck Jones. When things go wrong, he gives that smile, and you're like, oh, you rascal! But here, he's not a rascal. He's doing a tight five. Like, when he's in his reclining chair, and he's arguing with his echo.
That's great.
And he goes, you're a jerk! And he goes,
you're an idiot!
No, he goes, I'm an idiot. And then the echo goes, you're an idiot! Yes. And that's good. And then he has this whole tirade, and then he goes, you're an idiot.
I am just going to whisper, so by the time the sound reverberates off the walls, I won't be able to hear it. You're an idiot.
That's good. And again, it's also then Jim Carrey reacts appropriately with his mouth drops like a stone and his eyes look up and he goes, and you're just, it's Jim fucking Carrey.
I also did like the Grinch's answering machine message, which children answering machines back in the day and fax machines back in the day were but that whole thing where he like checks his messages is like, better check the outgoing, and then
he goes, there's 0 messages. He goes, better check the outgoing message, and
if you so much as utter one syllable, I will hunt you down and gut you like a fish.
And then he goes, well, that's right. And you just and there's like, I don't know how to describe this voice. It's like a little bit nebbish, a little bit Sean Connery. It's all up here. And he goes,
yeah.
You know what? That sounds good. And you're just like,
yeah, he does sound like Sean Connery.
A little bit.
That's
rather odd.
But it's like an American Sean Connery. So he does the jaw waggle, but it's not Scottish. And like, although he does make a kilt joke, and then he goose steps away, goes,
while wearing a garter.
He's wearing it's
not a dress. It's a kilt.
It's also not a kilt. It's like he's wearing bloomers in a sundress, and he goes, because so it's the 1000th jubilation because who gives a shit. And they need a Who-meister, a cheermeister for the jubilation. And Cindy Lou walks up. And by the way, we haven't talked about these outfits because the Who's are Rick Baker nonsense.
He got an Oscar for this movie, and he deserved it.
Well, he did, but like they're trying to make human beings look like Who's. And you know what they should look like? People with rosy cheeks. But Ron asked him to do a lot, and he did a lot, and he deserves the award he got for it, but it's unsettling as hell. At one point, Jeffrey Tambor, I believe, has a line that he goes, "She hasn't even grown into her nose," and that's all you need to know about this movie.
They're these weird little elf things.
They don't look human, but they look like Dr. Seuss characters.
Which real people should never do. I'm sorry. I love Dr. Seuss. I love it, but the way to do it is animated. And the Benedict Cumberbatch movie wins immediately because it's animated. And the Lorax does too.
And, of course, the original Chuck Jones cartoon does it the best of all.
The Chuck Jones is a masterpiece. And I've taught it before when I've taught film for a lot of reasons. But mainly, it gets across everything without a word being spoken.
See, that's the better story about the making of than the Seuss widow being screwed over. It's like Chuck Jones wanted to make it, so he reached out to his old war buddy because, they'd worked on the propaganda together, and Dr. Seuss kept saying no until Chuck Jones wore him down. It's like, all right, fine. And then they cast Boris Karloff as the Grinch, and Dr. Seuss was against that because it'd be too creepy. But then he wins a Grammy because they released it as a record, and he got a spoken word album Grammy.
The thing is, this movie got all the right notes from that original thing, but took all the wrong meaning from it. Because, like, for example, Dr. Seuss writes in a very specific rhyming pattern. So you know what you can do? An offbeat song with Seussian lyrics. Why? It has that pacing. Here's the thing, though. Putting it in live action, you could still do it, but unless the whole script rhymes, it feels wrong. So let's maybe only the narrator do it. But the narrator's only there for like 7% of the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like there's a show which is mediocre, and people who listen to us are not young enough to watch it, but there's a Green Eggs and Ham cartoon show. And they do it like it's a spy thing, and it's way too long. But the way they do it is every scene is introduced and ended with a narrator speaking in Seussian rhyme. Here we get almost no Seussian rhyme, and the song "Where Are You Christmas" sounds nothing like that Yahoo Dore song at the end of this, or "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch." So it feels like it comes out of nowhere, and that's why Faith Hill sings it rather than anyone who gives a shit. So, like, this movie is like, again, it took all the wrong notes.
Could you imagine Ween doing the "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" song?
First of all, hold your tongue. If it came out this year, it would be Weezer, and it would be a sad Weezer.
Yeah.
You're a mean one, Mr. And Rivers would halfway through need to be doing anything else. Because, I'm sorry, I love you, Rivers, but Cuomo, retire. You're fine. Just be a producer or something, because you don't care. And if you don't care, why keep doing it?
They put on a good show when I saw them live, but...
No, but that's live. Don't put out an album every year. When was the last time that you made it out? Remember when they did Toto? And they did Africa? Could you have been bothered? Absolutely not. So, you're a mean one, Mr. Weezer. No, stop. And here, like, I mean, I don't even know where we are in the movie, but eventually...
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
If you want to steal Christmas, oh, yo, take this Who hash when I go to sleep. When I go to sleep, watch me unravel. Christmas will be stolen, and I'll be on the floor, lying on the floor, learning about Christmas. Yeah, that's all we got.
Where we are, Cindy Lou Who nominates the Grinch to be the Who-meister. Apparently, it should be the person who needs the most Christmas cheer.
And then she goes to tell him because he's not going to go to town. And at this point we get like, I mean, and we haven't really mentioned it yet, but he lives in like Jigsaw's house. Like there's gears everywhere, there's traps. He's lying in like a recliner eating glass. We mentioned he argues with himself, but when she shows up and he smells like garbage, he then vamps for 7.5 minutes. Like he does the thing from like that he's about to Hulk out. He's like yelling at her and she's just giggling because I imagine being with Jim Carrey was funny. And I'd love to meet the man because he's a comedy icon of mine. But like I assume the script just says, and then Jim says something funny, and then he did 20 minutes of nonsense.
And at one point he actually breaks the fourth wall and complains about kids being desensitized by movies and television.
I mean, and we haven't even really described how he looks yet.
He looks vaguely cat-like.
He looks cat-like. The costume is incredible. Like, I mean, and Jim Carrey's not quite my height, but it's like 6'2" of like green fur. He has these yellow contacts in that are horrifying. And watching this streaming on HBO, like, and in 4K, like it's clearly irritating his eyes. Like he also is wearing dentures, so his teeth are all like crazy. And then at one point when they say he has termites in his smile, they CGI some horror show. And then there's 2 times where, like, I will say I don't like... I mean, Ron Howard, to me, I've talked on this on the podcast before, he's an indifferent director. But, like, there's twice here where the CGI is a mistake. Number one is those teeth. Those termites in here smile. That's CGI nonsense to the nth degree. But those moths that eat the stockings, those are real, real bad. So after 45 minutes of this, he finally gets around to trying to steal Christmas.
Well, he gets insulted while being the cheermeister, which leads... At first, it's one of the funniest montages.
Right. 40 minutes in, she's still convincing him. So when he shows down, he's like, "But I have nothing to wear!" And this is where we get him wearing a kilt. And
he steals the Appalachian, not Appalachian.
No,
Alpine.
He's yodeling.
The yodeler outfit.
Heidi's grandpa.
Which, by the way,
he jacks Heidi's grandpa's lederhosen.
He murders that guy, right?
We don't see him again.
Yeah, he's dead. Also, we should mention, there's one joke here that I laughed. He goes, "My schedule won't allow it." He goes, 4 o'clock, like wallow in self-pity. 4:30, stare into the abyss, right? 5 o'clock, solve world hunger. And then 6 o'clock.
No one.
Yeah, tell no one. 6 o'clock, lonesome dinner with myself. I can't cancel that again. And he goes, "And besides, I have nothing to wear." And then he does the "I'm too sexy" montage. And then right at the end of this whole thing, Jeffrey Tambor's like, "Well, if he doesn't show up, I get to be holiday cheermeister." And him and Clint Howard, who have the same haircut, are looking, particularly like losers.
So Clint Howard is like his sycophant assistant.
Yeah.
Yes. Ron's little brother. And I will say, like, for all the crap I give Clint Howard actually is fine here. But then, and this is where you already mentioned, the Grinch flushes himself down he sits down on a garbage hatch, and Max the dog flushes him to Whoville. And this is when, after hitting a slingshot, he face plants into Christine Baranski's cleavage because she has to play a horn dog like she does in everything. And he shows up and stares down Jeffrey Tambor, and this is where we get what happens at the Whovilation. And
including a Chariots of Fire montage where he cheats in a sack race.
And by the by, like, everything that happens here is, like, horrifying. We have the fruitcake something.
Oh, he keeps, he's asked to be like a taste tester 3 different times, and by, I think the second time he's going full Mr. Creosote going, "Bring it on!"
And that might be after the fudge dump or whatever they call it.
The fudge judge.
You're the fudge judge.
I just remember the Einstein going, "This is not pudding."
But I will say at the beginning, he goes, they clothed you, they nursed you, they bathed you. And a bunch of old ladies rush up, and he goes, my God, you're still alive?
You two are still living?
And they put him in like a Christmas sweater.
And it's an ugly Christmas sweater, which I think inspired the whole thing, because this is 22 years ago now. They have like this thing called the Chair of Cheer or whatever they call it, and they bring him around. And by the way, this is... I don't know if you guys have seen Wicker Man or Midsommar.
Yeah.
But that's what this is. Like, he's the cheer master, and it gets like, this inspired horror movies like I've never seen.
Yeah, Mayor Augustus, who assholes, probably built like a giant wicker statue of Santa Claus to burn the Grinch in.
It's a Christmas tree. At the end, it's a giant ho, ho, ho. And they stuck a Christmas, They dress him like a candy cane and they light him on fire. But
Meanwhile,
like all these
Martha May-
Christmas puddings and like...
Meanwhile, Martha May during the fire is just sitting back and smiling as the Grinch is engulfed in flames. That was a weird movie, Midsummer.
It was. But like, we start with the Who pudding and they have like, and they're just force feeding him and they're like holding up his nose at one point, like, and like, oh, it's just, and he goes, ha ha. One guy goes, this is not pudding. And he goes, what is it? And they shove it down his throat. And then they have a conga. And then they have the fruitcake stuff. And then they have the fudge judge.
It's like that episode of The Simpsons Halloween where Homer goes to hell and they force feed him donuts.
The fruitcake fa la la. Have all the fruitcake in the world. And they're just tossing him around on this chair. But, I mean, by the way, if you ever want to hear a horror, like, we're recording this early, but, like, you want something for next Halloween, just have Jeffrey Tambor whisper in your ear, fudge judge.
Oh, God.
Because at the one point, the Grinch, after consuming, like, 12,000 calories, is that all you got? Is it all you got? And this is when after that they kick in with the sack race where he's knocking over children to win and they're playing Chariots of Fire. By the way, at the end, like the whole thing is horning up Christine Baranski, who's like, "Oh my God, I'm so wet right now, Grinch. Oh my God, this is a kids movie."
Well, and then she's offered a new car by the mayor to marry him, and that's
at the taxpayer's expense.
And the mayor gives the Grinch the same razor that the Grinch had taken to his face 30 years earlier, and he has a straight up nom flashback to elementary school, and it just goes crazy.
But I mean, speaking of Midsommar, while that's happening, he's wearing like he's a Ghost of Christmas Present or something, like an Advent wreath around his head, like, and he's like thrusting. He's like, "I beat the children. I'm the best. Hey, Christine Baranski, nice tits." And then at that point, Jeffrey Tambor proposes. And he's like, "And if you say yes in the next 30 seconds, you get this car at the taxpayer's expense." And everyone's like, "He's going to have sex with you. He's 75 years old." And everyone laughs. And we're an hour into this movie, and the Grinch has not even conceived of stealing Christmas yet. And
it happens after this whole sequence.
He's holding the razor and thinking about mauling Jeffrey Tambor, which he should. And he shaves Tambor's head, at which point Cliff Howard also shaves part of his head.
In solidarity.
Yeah. And, you know, I will say, if anyone deserves credit to this movie other than Jim Carrey, it's Clint Howard, who's like, "Ooh, look at this car. Oh, baby." And the Grinch scratches it, which is good. But I'll also say, at this point, we should mention, everyone's wearing stupid shit at this point, including Lou Who, Cindy Lou's dad, is wearing a punch bowl of eggnog, and the mom is wearing a glass of eggnog, and the cops are wearing on top of their heads cups of coffee with donuts attached. And at this point, the Grinch is Matt's right to say this is about consumerism, but we don't get it until 57 minutes in, because at this point, the Grinch is like, "You with your gifts. You know what it is? When you get gifts, you know where they end up? With me on top of the mountain. They all get thrown down the garbage chute, and I use them to turn them into my saw houses. By the way, your son is missing because apparently he cheated on his wife and lost the saw contraption. I don't know what to tell you. They sell it to me. I turn it. That pony that you'll ride twice, they turn it into glue, and this goes on for a while.
Yeah, basically, there's this whole rampage that he does in Whoville.
At one point, he sets a Christmas tree on fire. He tries to hitchhike, and his car drives by him. It's because I'm green, isn't it?
I will say, but this starts his like 9th rampage because he goes, there's one Christmas tradition I like, the mistletoe. And then he shoves it up his ass. Christine Baranski faints, half of Whoville faints, and then that's when he shaves what's his name's head.
Someone's looking fabulous.
Oh, that was a good, well done there, Matt. That was a pretty good read.
That was exactly and at this point, and then he destroys Christmas. He tears his sweater off. He burns the tree down. He steals an old man's secret whiskey, right?
He needed to wet his whistle.
That's right. And the old man, I think the line is, "Yes, my good stuff." And then he burns down the tree, which is a pretty good shot.
And apparently Martha May is enraptured.
Everyone is enraptured. I mean, I will say the one joke that Matt mentioned in the text chain before Daniel and I got mad that he liked, I do like, which is that she's decorating herself with an anti-aircraft gun.
Yeah, she's got an anti-air. Apparently Martha May and Cindy Lou Who's mom have like a sort of... Well, Cindy Lou Who is Mary Lou Who is jealous of Martha May's decorating, and she thinks, I'm going to beat her this year. Suddenly, Martha May comes out with a World War II anti-aircraft gun, firing strings of lights. Speaking
of a joke for not for kids, though, she comes out in like a teddy. Like she's wearing like a bustier with like a flared out dress.
A bustier for a Whovier.
A bustier. But then... Also, I mean, and Matt alluded to this, but like there are also these tiny Who's. Like there's one inside of a tuba sousaphone earlier, and then he steals the car from one, and he's driving around harassing people, and then he spins out and it explodes. But again, to me, that's all Jim Carrey. Like this movie, if it was anyone else, there's no movie here, right? Like this movie is a masterpiece of nonsense.
But you said it's a masterpiece.
Okay.
I'm Grinching.
No, you're right. Okay, so if you have a late Friendsgiving or a holiday party and the eggnog is a little hard, you put this on with friends around. Because this is something everyone can make fun of.
And then you do that conga line they do during the jubilation.
Right. A conga line. It's gonna blow! Like,
yeah, and it's like slow-mo run away from basically a glorified Matchbox car.
Like, I want to say that Ron Howard, because we've talked about this before. I don't hate Ron Howard, but like, if you need someone to make the movie where the script is good, but you want someone to add nothing, he's the person to add. He has to me no characteristics as a director. And so, to me, you could almost give the co-directing credit to Jim Carrey because he's where all the laughs come from. But now, of this 100-minute movie...
We're finally at
where 60 minutes in.
And he's finally ready to steal some goddamn Christmas.
He returns to Mount Crumpet and goes full steampunk in his lair.
Yeah, I mean, because, like, literally, at an hour... I'm watching this as we talk about this. It's not until... Because, like, at the end of his chaos run where he's destroying the jubilation, right? At the end of it, Jeffrey Tambor looks at this child and says, "It's your fucking fault, you child." Someone in a bell tower goes, "There's 4 hours till Christmas." So now it's 8 o'clock at night, and he still hasn't even considered stealing Christmas yet. We're at 59 minutes and 41 seconds when that line is uttered. That like that's no joke. I'm literally paused, and then at that point, after panning through this, we cut back to Mount Crumpet, and then Anthony Hopkins shows back up, and he goes, and he knows tomorrow all those good girls and boys will open their presents, and all the noise. And then we get the flashback to, and now, and they'll open their blah, 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 blah. Their bouncers and their tinglers and all that nonsense, which is what the story's about. We're an hour in now, and he hasn't even, he's still talking about Christmas. He hasn't considered it. That's the biggest mistake. And the Benedict Cumberbatch one, he's an orphan. He doesn't like Christmas because it was celebrated and he had no one. Fine. That's done in 20 minutes. Then the rest of it is the planning. Because you want to see the planning. It's a heist movie, effectively. And, by the time he's blast you who's, and then the Grinch thought of something that he hadn't thought of before. What would Christmas bring if there was no presents? And we're at an hour and 1 minute of an hour 40. How is this movie for kids? No one's going to sit this long. My daughter doesn't like watching this one anymore. And then we get what is one of the greatest Christmas songs of all time, all messed up, but it's You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, sung with a jazz quartet from that's doing ska, and then Jim Carrey is also kind of singing it, which is weird.
Jesus, I don't know either at this point. I mean, if you've seen the cartoon or read the book, you know what happens during the last 40 minutes of this movie. It's almost beat for beat with just some random Jim Carrey dialogue thrown in, like when the Grinch is going down the chimney and God stunk only once for a minute or two.
All that water weight going straight to my hips.
Yeah, something like that. And then, of course, the encounter between Cindy Lou Who and the Grinch during this, which makes no sense because Cindy Lou has to pretend she doesn't know who the Grinch is. Also, is there a Santa Claus in this universe?
Because yes, there is.
We see him. We actually see him because the Grinch is waiting for him to fly off to steal Christmas. Although I do want to, before we even get there, want to reference one scene, which is where he's a crash test dummy for some reason.
Airbag's a little slow.
And he goes, well, that's why we have tests. And then he goes limp like he's he's a quarterback.
This exhibit is closed.
But again, that's funny because of Jim Carrey. There's no need for it to be here. But and this is where we get the termites in his smile and everything. But once Santa rides off, we get the he forgot about the reindeer, but did that Grinch? No. If I don't have a reindeer, I'll make one instead. And again, Kelley the dog doing some Academy Award level acting.
And this is where we get the scene with the Grinch as a director trying stuff on Kelley the dog, including the Rudolph nose. Brilliant! Why didn't I think of that?
By this point, Ron Howard is asleep. I don't know what to tell you. At the end, he goes down Mount Crumpet, and they do the whole thing. And I will say though, we all make jokes about jokes because jokes are jokes, or jokes are funny for jokes.
Jokeception.
Yeah. Don't take an edible before this, because during this whole stealing Christmas, it not only gets weird, it gets super weird. There's a superimposed Grinch head rolling around going, yang, yang, yang. It's at one point Lou Who wakes up and Mary Beth Who or Betty Who or whatever they call her wakes up and they're like, is someone on the roof? And he goes, it's Santa. We better go back to sleep. And you're like, fine. But all this stuff it's just so much. He got stuck for a moment or two, and then he stuck his face out of the firefly flue, and then CGI attacks the movie. It just goes on and on and on and on. There's a bukkake shot with eggnog. When Cindy Lou Who wakes from bed with her cup to get some water, and the Grinch is like, oh, don't worry, there's a tree.
There's a light on this side.
This tree that won't light on one side, so I'm taking it back to my workshop, my dear, to fix it up there to bring it back here. Oh, I know that whole book. But he exposes his face. And I'm sorry, there's one person with a green face in this entire world. This is the second whitest movie we've ever done. And there's one person with a green face in the world. she'd remember. This doesn't make sense. Now, if every Who had a different face color, that'd be something else. They're already wearing prosthetics. Make a blue Who. Or a Cindy Blue Who.
Put on a damn Santa beard.
Which he doesn't. But like eventually even he just sticks his face through the tree and you're just like, oh, there's one person that could be. It's the Grinch. And we know the Grinch is Santa.
And they have to pretend they don't know each other.
It's stupid.
So,
it's so stupid.
Let's skip ahead.
Although I will say, no, the one joke I laughed at here, he goes, thank you, Santa. And he goes, she's a nice kid. Terrible judge of character. And I'm like, you know what? The first line that Ron got right. That's exactly right. Anyway, so after stealing Christmas for what seems like forever, but I will point out, he doesn't get the idea to steal Christmas for an hour in. He's done stealing a Christmas at an hour and 17. So the whole movie, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, 17 minutes of 77 minutes is stealing Christmas. And then at that point, Jeffrey Tambor comes out of his house, which, by the way, is hilarious because his bed is tied to a cop car and he gets pulled into the street. That's a good joke to me. He also, at this point, we haven't talked about it enough yet, but he pranks everyone, including Jeffrey Tambor, who's asleep and asleep.
And this is where he makes the mayor kiss the dog's ass.
But he goes, you want to kiss me, Christine Baranski? I don't know. You ever kissed a man who had to get his tonsils removed twice, which made me laugh. and then the Grinch goes in. Oh yes, I can't wait to kiss you. Mew mew mew. And then after eating out a dog's ass for about a good 30 seconds, because we see the CGI eyes bug out of that dog's head, he goes to Christine Baranski's house, and the Grinch takes a good old look. Grinch, how's the peeping, Grinch? How's the peeping? He steals the triple-decker engagement ring, which also I assume was paid for at the taxpayer's expense. And then after what I assume is just stuffing his pockets with her panties, Christmas has come, and everyone wakes up, and all those Who's say boo-hoo down in Whoville. And guess what? In this movie, they actually say boo-hoo, which to me undoes the entire book. Because the whole book is supposed to be, at the end of the day, they like doing the Christmas thing of giving presents because they like each other. It's not about commercialism. They actually care for each other, and the Grinch is interpreting the whole thing wrong. That's what the book is about to me, right? Like,
no, it's the Grinch that needs to learn something, not the Who's.
Right. And that's what Dr. I mean, and that's the same thing with the Christmas Carol. Like, the Christmas Carol's like, you are misinterpreting what's happening at Christmas. Because when Ebenezer Scrooge laughs at the people taking charity, he's getting it wrong. Here, the Grinch gets it wrong because he's like, why are people spending money for other people? It's not because they like the idea of, you know, the Dickensian giving your last dime to give a gift for someone else, right? You're doing it because you care for other people. And here, Jeffrey Tambor is the one who's almost right for a second. He's like, he stole Christmas. You child, you bitch! You ruined Christmas! You bitch! And then,
you blew it up! Damn you to hell!
And then the only person to speak up for her is her dad. And her dad's like, I'm proud of her. And everyone for a second looks at him like he's crazy.
Is it also just me, or did everybody look bored during the Dahu Doris song?
And the fact that Jim Carrey is vamping there, that's on you, Ron Howard. That's the director's choice. You should have said no. The one thing that he should have done with everything else is the song at the end. Right?
Especially if they're not going to have a scene of him carving the roast beast.
Which, by the way, they do in his horrible house. Like, it'd be like at the end of Saw, he's like, you got me. Who wants Thanksgiving here? Right? Like it still smells like shit. You're still next to the dump. Like, come on, man. The reason they invite him down is to show that he's undid everything he did, right? He stole Christmas. So not only did he give Christmas back to them, he's then sitting with them at their house, as opposed to, I'm sorry that the in-laws ruined everything. Come to my place up a mountain. So I'm going to give credit to one of my favorite film reviewers, Chris Cabin. He goes, so instead we celebrate the worst part of Christmas, which is the travel. We have to all go up the mountain to visit the asshole.
Well, I mean, if a 9-year-old could do it, it's not that big of a thing.
And that's why I'm wearing a MAGA hat. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Christmas. Mm-hmm. But again, at the end, I guess Jeffrey Tambor doesn't win re-election or whatever happens at the end of this. Just, like, best we can tell, since this is on a fucking snowflake, he's the dictator of the town, so he goes down like Saddam, I guess. I don't know how to...
He's hiding under the mayor's house. They pull him out, and he's got a beard like the Grinch.
In Boogdad. And at the end, he goes to try out the Hoog.
Oh, put on trial for war crimes in the Hoog.
And Barack Obama takes some drones and brings him down. I'm George Who Bush.
Hoobia.
Anyway, at the end of this fucking thing, Cindy Lou climbs to the top of Mount Crappit, and
I'm not sure if that was a deliberate joke, Mount Crappit.
Let's just
Look
go with
at the
sure,
mountain.
why not? And by the way, at this point, it turns into Cronenbergian body horror, because when his heart grows 3 sizes, he turns into a Looney Tune, and it leaps out of his chest, and he's like, gah!
Help me, Max. I'm feeling.
Dude, his feelings is so much. It's so much. And oh, God help me. By the way, I love all of our listeners. If you're having a hard holiday season and this is helping you through, thank you for absorbing our pain. Because at this point, as I'm speaking, we're almost as long as the movie. We are
boy.
77 minutes into this recording,
Oh, Jesus.
and we haven't even gotten to the end yet, because then CGI is going to take over. Because here's the thing. At the end, he hears the singing. They aren't sad at all. They're actually singing. They sing without presents. They sing without bags, right? They sing without presents and boxes and tags.
How could it be so? It came without packages.
And then, well, in Whoville they say that his heart grew 3 sizes that day. And then you see in the Chuck Jones version the sleigh start to shudder and then slide. And then they say, and then he grew the strength of 10 Grinches plus 2. But here, that wasn't enough, because Cindy Lou had to also be there to add emotional stakes.
And so he goes full mom pulling a car off her kid and lifts the whole thing over his head.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but we didn't need the extra emotional stakes. And then we get more horny jokes, because he goes, spread eagle, as he like gets hit in the crotch. And then he goes, excuse me, can you move over? The snow is bitchin'. And I'm like, when was it? Wasn't this G-rated? When do you get to say bitchin' in a G-rated movie?
I don't
You're
think
allowed
it was.
one.
Uncle Ron? Ron?
I don't think it is G-rated
Is it not?
PG, I think.
because of the word.
Oh, one word. Who? They said who 37 times. They're like, nah, I can't condone this. The Widow Seuss said no. She's on the MPAA now. There's a who titty. No. Anyway, at this point, he carves the roast beast using one of the knives he was going to use to kill the Who's or whatever. And then we learned the moral of Christmas, which is don't hire Faith Hill.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody. Like, holy shit, this movie. We've been talking for as long as the Benedict Cumberbatch movie, and I tell you what, better movie! By the way, that was directed by Scott Mosier from...
Of Clerks fame.
Clerks fame.
Kevin Smith's old producer, yeah. A year after this, Ron Howard won an Oscar. Not for this movie, but for A Beautiful Mind, yeah.
Ron Howard is a director you hire if everything else should speak for itself. This movie should not have spoken for itself. Like, I don't know who could have made this movie work. I would say if you could do it, go back in time. Go full Fairley Brothers, make it PG-13 or R, and then make it a comedy.
I could see Wes Anderson doing like a stop-motion version of The Grinch or a Dr. Seuss book.
I just wish no one had the idea of making it live action. It's 2000, so we're on that borderline between hand animation and CGI animation, and just make take the Chuck Jones one and make it longer, but you shouldn't even do that. Like, I like the Benedict Cumberbatch version better, but what they do is keep the Grinch out of it for most of it.
Well, I've never seen that version, but I've seen the Chuck Jones cartoon. I assume we're on final thoughts now.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. The Chuck Jones cartoon is an absolute masterpiece. Like, if America dies and, 1,000 years from now, Americana's in a museum, the Chuck Jones cartoon's going to be there. Because that is just such this unique piece, and it's wonderful. And if you haven't watched it yet during this holiday season, go watch it. This is just utter dog shit. I mean, the makeup's good, the production design's good, but the performances are bad. The script is terrible. Jim Carrey, some of the solo riffing he does is funny, but for the most part, he's just completely miscast. There seems to be this growing nostalgia around this movie, and I don't know why. I really don't.
As our esteemed host pointed out, this movie probably is too long and too adult for kids. But I saw it when it came out when I was in high school, and I saw it again. I thought it was freaking hilarious. So maybe it's meant for older people. It's like they took the original Grinch story and Shrekified it.
I don't like this movie. I don't know exactly where it loses me because it's such a mess. This movie seems to me to be, ironically, what it's critiquing. This, to me, is a cash grab. That's the problem. It's a cash grab. You take the most sought-after Christmas material that has not been made into profit, and then you make it profitable. And that sucks. Like, I know no one's going to disagree me on this, but, it's just a disappointment. I think this movie survives because of Jim Carrey. I like Jim Carrey. I think he's funny, and I don't want him to ever go away. Even in dramatic roles, he adds life to them. This movie's only life is because of him. And I don't even hate Ron Howard. He's just not a director who adds color to anything. Anyway, I don't know if this, critiquing a Christmas movie adds to anyone's life. So I'm going to end that here. But in that mode, I will say, I appreciate you guys listening to us. This being a thing that I imagine you're listening to around the holidays makes us happy that you do it. Life is hard around this time of year for some people, and it's happy for others. So I hope you're listening to this for the right reasons, and if you're not, just know that we're here to make your dark days of December happy. I know this is the longest day of the year right around when this comes out, so I hope you enjoy it, and we're here for you. In the meantime, I'm going to recommend some happier Christmassy things, if that's what you're into. If you want to watch some bad Christmas things that will make you happy, watch Jingle All the Way, which is one we haven't done yet, and I promise it's coming. Otherwise, watch some classics, because I think the original Grinch is good because it's nice and tight. And if you want to watch a Christmassy thing come to real life in a full-length animated movie, watch the Peanuts movie, which I think is an Illumination thing, but the Illumination version of the Peanuts movie is real good. Anyway, in the meantime, we have a couple more Christmassy things. And, of course, as we're talking and as we're doing these things, I want to remind you that we appreciate you as you rate and review, because rating and reviewing gets us stuff. So, in this holiday season, make sure you share for us, because we like it when you share. Anyway, next week, because during Christmassy season, the holiday season, December, we like to do family stuff. You've just listened to us do first Fellowship of the Ring, followed by the Two Towers. Next week, we're going to do Willow, because it's another family thing. It's nice and friendly. And, of course, Willow is going to lead us directly into our Christmas holiday special, where this year we're doing the Star Wars holiday special, which not only leads us between Christmas and New Year's, but is, I mean, if this movie we thought was overproduced and a train wreck, you have not seen Star Wars Christmas special yet.
Gaze upon the abyss and hope it doesn't gaze back.
And then after that, I'll give you a little bit of a little heads up, because after doing Willow and the Christmas special, or I guess Star Wars holiday special, technically, we go directly back to Wicket, and we do the Ewok adventure, The Battle for Endor.
Ugh.
Which, by the by, is on Disney Plus, so you can watch along with us. That's why we tell you these things. I watched Willow, streaming, I believe, on Disney Plus, and Star Wars Holiday Special is in like 7 different versions on YouTube, so you can find it. And then Battle for Endor is also on Disney Plus, so you can enjoy watching some Star Warsy stuff with us as we go. So happy holidays to all of you as you listen to this, and thanks for listening, subscribing, sharing, and doing all that you do to help us get over 500,000 downloads in the past year. I'm Nick.
I'm Matt.
I've been Daniel.
Thanks, guys. Season 9 of Myopia Movies is produced by Nick Hoffman and Daniel Sudis. It is hosted by Nick Hoffman and stars Daniel Sudis and Matt Quinn. The theme music is Surf Shimmy by Kevin MacLeod of Incomtech.com and is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and review us wherever podcasts are found. Thanks, guys.